When my car agent gave me the keys to my new car, he told me, "Cars are very expensive in Singapore. Drive your car as often as you can." Now, his advice doesn't make sense. I mean, if a car is expensive, shouldn't one drive it less often so that the car remains in pristine condition, so that the engine oil remains clean, the rubber tires remain thick, and the car interiors still smelling new? Yes, the advice doesn't make sense until you know more about what it means to own a car in Singapore. So a car in this country is good only for 10 years, after which one either pays a hefty amount to extend its use or just deregisters it. So unlike a watch advertisement that says you don't really own a Patek Philippe and that you merely look after it for the next generation, for a car, if there's an advertisement, it would be you don't really own a car. You only drive it for 10 years. Now I understand why friends offer to lend me their cars when they go overseas. They'd rather somebody drive the car and make good use of it than leaving it parked and wasting it away. Now, in the same way, our lives, they do not last for generations. We live them only for a certain number of years. There is, my friends, an expiration date. And when that day of expiration nears, we have no option to pay an amount of money and get an extension. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 describes for us signs of a nearing expiration date. It is a time when the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, describing for us failing eyesight. It describes for us of clouds returning after the rain, which speaks of illness after illness. Just after you've recovered from, say, coughing, the next thing you know is that you're back at the hospital for something else. When the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, it tells us of a time when one's legs become weak and one can no longer stand up straight because of back problems. When the grinders cease because they are few. It happens when you no longer can bite an apple or enjoy nuts because you've only a few teeth left. When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades. Have you seen people with no dentures? Their mouths remain closed and you don't hear them chewing. When men rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. When we are young, we don't hear the morning birds chirping because we are sound asleep. But there comes a time when one rises up at about the same time the rooster crows, yet he could not hear the crowing clearly. When men are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, now this is not fear of bungee jumping or mountain climbing, this is extra sensitivity to the fear of dangers. Danger of heights, danger of outdoors. Which season of one's life do these descriptions describe? It's old age, friends. It is that season that announces the date of expiration is near when you experience these. That game over is approaching when all these signs appear. What's the advisory? Well, if my car agent says, drive your car as often as you can and make full good use of it before the 10th year arrives, the advisory that the writer of Ecclesiastes tells us is found in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Do not wait for the unpleasurable season of old age to arrive before deciding to carve out time for God. God has given us a lifetime to know Him and to serve Him. Doesn't it make sense to make full use of the prime of our lives for Him? And the writer ends by saying, "Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." The purpose of our existence is for God. It's to know Him, to serve Him, and obey Him. And thankfully, this is made possible through God's Son, Jesus, whose death reconciled us back to God, so that our lives no longer be wasted in following our own desires, but can now be lived abundantly for the Lord. And so remember Him who created you. Remember Him in your prime season. Know Him, serve Him, obey Him. For this is the whole duty of man. With that, I wish you all a wisely spent school holiday. Stay safe, remember God, and do all things in service to Him. Amen.